I have 17 pens on my desk in front of me, and that makes me happy. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we are continuing on in my week-long extravaganza. Today is day 4 of 5. So if you have missed the previous 3, please do go check them out. They are doing on the channel, like all of my videos. So I talked about top 5 surprising nibs, top 5 pens for journaling, and my top 5 favorite ways to use my pens more. Today, before we get to tomorrow, because tomorrow's going to be a very interesting video, and I talk about something I never thought I'd talk about in my entire life, so stay tuned for that one. But today, we're going to be talking about my top 5 favorite brands as a whole. And when I say whole, I'm not talking about anything that needs preparation H. No, I'm not. I'm talking about fountain pens, but I do want to put a little caveat, little asterisk on the top and say, while I do know a fair amount of each of these companies brand-wise, I do not know everything about them. I'm primarily focusing on it from a pen enjoyment standpoint, not necessarily a company standpoint. These are the 5 brands where I would feel comfortable recommending any of these pens to somebody who has never used fountain pens before, knowing that they would have a pretty good shot at having a really good first experience. Like you all know, for example, you all know how much I love the Kaweco Sport fountain pen, but Kaweco is not a brand that I have on this list because a lot of times the first impression are not always great. A lot of times they're dry, they can be scratchy. There's some quality issues. Like for example, there will also not be a Visconti on this list. Whilst I have 2 of their pens, I've had way more in the past. And I really like the way that they write now. They do not typically write very well out of the box for the moolah. Even if they were like $2, they still wouldn't. So they're not on this list. So I'm not necessarily talking about brand politics, mostly just the pens themselves. You get it? Okay, let's go. Starting with probably my all-time favorite. And by probably my all-time favorite, I mean... press me on it, I probably would say my favorite, although I would be very hard pressed to say that. And that is Pilot. It is probably the brand that I have the most variety of pens in. Starting from this side, I was going to say left to right, but I don't know if you see it left to right or right to left. So starting on this side, the Pilot Metropolitan, Pilot E95S, Pilot Custom 912, Pilot Custom 823, Pilot Custom 823, Pilot Custom 74. And I've had many more Pilots in my time. I've just since sold them because I do, believe it or not, try and keep my collection relatively neat and tidy, but I adore them, and they are absolutely stunning and gorgeous, and I love it. I love it so stinking much. I really want to get a Pilot Urushi in my hands, but y'all, those are a lot of dollars. So I really like this brand. They all write really well, and that's the thing I think I really appreciate the most about Pilot. And to be fair, all of these, with the exception potentially of one, but I'll get there. They write really well right out of the box. They're smooth, they're nice and wet. None of them are inherently gushers, which for me is something that I make later. But for the average person, they're plenty wet enough. It is a Japanese brand, which I think is really nice for those who like to have really fine writing instruments, because an extra fine and then a fine on a Pilot is going to write much finer than a European counterpart. However, once you get to the mediums, broads, whatever, they all basically write the same. And these are a little bit more subdued as far as colors go. Pilot tends to be a little bit more subdued. I used to have a couple of the vanishing points, but I found I just didn't really use the vanishing points. In fact, I actually had one of the like sought after Twilights, but I sold that several years ago because I just don't use vanishing points very much. I just never found it my jam. But they all write swimmingly. Variety of different filling methods. You've got your cartridges, your converters, your vacuum fills. You've got your piston if you get the custom 92, which I will be doing eventually. Everything is always eventually. So that I would definitely say is probably, like I said, put something to my head and that's probably what I would choose. Now, the one that would have me a little bit gutted, and once again I say in another video, I'm not going to go into detail about it because I talk about them all the time, is probably the flashiest pens I own, and that is Benu. Benu, like Pilot, you are almost guaranteed, like 99.9% guaranteed to get a stellar writer right out of the box. I've never once had a fountain pen from Benu not be stellar. I have 6 of them in my hand. I have since sold 4. So out of the 10 Benus that I've had in my collection at one point, all 10 of them wrote fantastically, and I've had extra fine all the way up to broad as experience. So these are really great. Like many, I judged these harshly when they first came out. I just got a notification from my condo board. It's nothing. The things that, YouTubers see when they're filming and they don't want to do too many jump cuts. These are all fantastic. They are something that I judged pretty heavily, not only for their looks, but also the price, because they are a little bit pricey for a steel nib, but honestly, guys, 100,000% worth it. They are their best writing experience pens you'll really ever get, and you never have to worry about them, and there is absolutely a style for you. So do check those out. If you want to see more about them, just check anywhere on my channel because they're everywhere. All right, the next brand is a brand with one of the oldest pens and one of the newest pens that I have, and that is Platinum. So Platinum, actually, I do also have, pardon the reach here, I do have a couple different, whoops, don't drop them, preppies as well. Preppies are great. I put like my trash inks in them. So in the black one, I have like the Platinum Super Black ink, Carbon Black, I think it's called. In the blue one, I had Noodler's Bay State. In this clear one, I've had all the red inks that stain. But the oldest pen in my collection, or at least one of, is this blue chartreuse here. This is the first gold nib pen I ever bought. It is very toothy, which I think is that exception that I was talking about. For some people, may not like that tooth because this is a fine nib. It feels very much like you're using a sharpened pencil, is how I can describe that, where it's still smooth, but you certainly feel it. And then the newest one that I have here is the Platinum Century Celluloid in the tortoise finish, which is absolutely stunning. It has a medium nib. It is beautiful. What I really love about this and why I would recommend it is because you can have 2 different writing experiences. One that feels like a pencil, one that does not. Between the fine and the medium nib. They are slightly on the drier side, but still nowhere near dry. They're just slightly drier to me. They are really great in the sense that you can have these things inked up for years and they won't go dry because they have a really cool slip and seal mechanism on the inside of the cap. And I really, really enjoy them. This is my preferred model of Platinum. But like I said, I really, really like the Preppy because they are really great as well. I've used a couple other Platinums, but much like some of my Pilots and some of my Benus, I have since sold them because, again, I'm trying to keep the collection down. So now we have 2 more brands, one of which I think is going to surprise you, but one that probably won't is a brand from Germany called Pelican. The bird. This is also one of the oldest pens I've had in my collection, and actually one that I bought at my very first pen show. And this is the M805, the Streisman. I always mispronounce it because I I'm terrible. And I will probably never ever sell this one. I have sold a couple of them since, but I will never sell this one because it came from the pen show. And correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section down below, because I haven't bought a new Pelican in a very long time because they are kind of pricey. They're changing their barrels so that when you hold them to the light, I don't know if you'll be able to see, you can see through these stripes here. So you can keep an eye on your ink level, but they're changing that and they're not making it see through anymore, which I think is a darn tootin' shame. And then I also have the brown M200, which is the itty bitty pen with the steel nibs. This one also didn't write super fantastically when I first got it, but it wasn't anywhere near like bad, for example. It just had a ever so slight misalignment with the tines, and I'm really sensitive. I don't think most people are, but I'm really sensitive to a misalignment in those tines. So I fixed that up, but no biggie. I got it. And I've never really been disappointed, especially with the Streisman pens, with how smooth these are, folks. Like, they write like crazy. I had a fine nib on here and I swapped it out with someone for their extra fine nib, because the fine nib wrote like a medium, almost broad, which, while I loved how smooth and wet it was, it just meant that it was too big for my writing. So I have since swapped that nib, and now she dynamite. And it is expensive, but to be fair, except for the preppy, they all kind of are. Even this next brand, which I don't think any of you are going to be expecting me to say, but I'm going to tell you why. Although, to be fair, it is kind of expensive. But anywho, it's TWSBI. Why is this on my top 5 brands, even though I personally don't 100% love them all the time? I have slowly been coming around more and more to TWSBI, and that's because I think it is, out of all of these, the brand that is the most accessible to everyone. They are relatively appropriately priced. I would say for somebody who is brand spanking new to the hobby, they are extraordinarily overpriced, but that's because when I first started, I thought anything more than a couple dollars was expensive for a pen. Look at me now, Mom. But I think that they're really approachable. TWSBI does encourage you to take apart the entire pen, which doesn't sound like it would be approachable, but it actually is, because it means that you can actually completely clean out these pens, which is a problem for most fountain pens, especially vacuum fillers and piston fills. I did actually just do a video not too long ago called Wrecked Your TWSBI, where I take it completely apart and show you how to do that and put it back together, especially because this new one, the VAC 700R, has a little funky bit with the seal on the inside, that you may want to check that out. But with the Diamond 580, I would say this is probably their flagship. This is the one that like gets them the most fans, if you want to call that. I really put this brand on the top 5 because the build quality is insane. They did have a lot of issues back in the day when they first started making some of these pens, especially with their mini ones, because some of the components were a more brittle plastic that was prone to breaking a lot, but they have long since fixed that, and really ever since have never had any issues that I'm aware of. This pen right here is one of my favorites. This happens to be a fine nib. They come out with new colors every year, when they do, like, I think multiple times a year. They've done a lot of blues, which this one is, but I really like the feel of it. It feels like a substantial pen. I rolled over my pen with my desk chair, the one that I'm actually sitting on, and it still works no problemo. And so I really appreciate that, and I appreciate how they're really trying to change some things in the fountain pen world. And let's be real, it did sort of shake up the industry a little bit when they were coming out with the pistons and vac fills, and charging less than the majority of people were charging. Because, guys, fountain pens get expensive. But I don't have to tell you that. You know it. You love it. So, yes, I have Pilot, Benu, Platinum, Pelican, and TWSBI. Those are my favorite 5 brands. They are the brands that if I'm going to be buying a new fountain pen, I don't really have to research or think a whole lot about buying them. I just do it. Whereas a lot of the other brands, I'll research a little bit more. I'll kind of get some videos. I will kind of reach out and see what other people are thinking about them, because you never know. But with these 5, I ain't worried. So let me know in the comment section down below what 5, or it doesn't even have to be 5, just what any fountain pen brand you really enjoy and why. Do you agree with the 5 that I chose? Why not? I don't know. Let me know. While you're down there, you might as well hit the like and subscribe, because new videos come out every Monday and Friday and the occasional Tuesday. And then if you want to be super awesome sauce special burger, check out the link in the description to my Patreon if you would like to help support me and what I do here. But as always, I'll see you guys next time. And actually, that's tomorrow, to talk about something that I never thought I would ever talk about. So, see you then.